Imagine finally reaching the pinnacle, something you've awaited your entire life, and suddenly, at the most crucial moment, a shadow falls upon your throne. Not from outside, but from the very heart of your home. An incredible scandal, one that could shatter centuries of tradition, began with a single confidential document. What secrets were hidden within those papers, and how did they change the fate of one of the world's most influential women? Watch until the end to uncover the full truth about the betrayal that rocked Buckingham Palace. The stark and devastating news that King Charles had stripped Camilla of her royal prerogatives, following an alleged attempt to appropriate a significant portion of Queen Elizabeth's colossal personal fortune for her own lineage, struck at the very core of Great Britain like a deafening clap of thunder. It was a seismic shock that left the ancient monarchy gasping, struggling to comprehend the gravity of what had occurred. The sovereign, who had patiently awaited his ascension to the throne throughout his life, suddenly found himself face to face with an act of profound disloyalty, an insidious betrayal emanating from the innermost sanctuary of his own royal household. This was not merely a family misunderstanding. It was a wound inflicted upon the very soul of the crown. But how did this truly dramatic saga, this tale of impending collapse, unfold? Its prologue was written within the walls of Clarence House, where a confidential yet ominous report landed on King Charles's majestic desk. Within its lines, meticulously compiled by diligent archivists, a labyrinth of unsettling discrepancies and glaring omissions was revealed. Family heirlooms, jewels whose destiny was inextricably intertwined with Elizabeth II's long and glorious reign, had inexplicably vanished from official inventory lists. Brooches that had sparkled on Her Majesty's chest and pearl. Strands captured in countless historical photographs seemed to have evaporated, no longer residing in the protected royal vaults. Initially, in his confusion and bewilderment, Charles was inclined to believe it was nothing more than an unfortunate clerical error, a mistake in the paperwork. How wrong he was! However, as the threads of the investigation began to tighten, and relentless investigators painstakingly pieced together the journey of one of the disappeared jewels, the very sapphire brooch that graced Elizabeth's chest during her sapphire jubilee, and traced it directly to Camilla's private family quarters, the horrifying truth revealed itself in all its ugliness, becoming simply impossible to deny. For years, Camilla had tirelessly worked to cultivate an image of a reliable and impeccable figure, a consort capable of honorably bearing the heavy burden of public responsibility. But now, in the unflinching light of irrefutable evidence, it became crystal clear that she had irrevocably crossed the line, treating Elizabeth's carefully guarded treasures as mere currency, intended to enrich her own lineage. For the British nation, this was not just a blatant display of greed. It was something far worse, a true sacrilege, a brazen assault on sacred relics, an integral part of their shared history. Yet what caused the greatest shock, deeply affecting many hearts, was the unimaginable speed with which this initially quiet, carefully concealed discovery transformed into something far grander and more public, threatening to collapse the reputation of the entire royal family. Within days, King Charles, gathering his courage, directly confronted Camilla, and instead of showing any remorse, instead of sincere regret, she began to claim that Queen Elizabeth had once supposedly promised her these very items, audaciously drawing parallels between herself and Kate and Meghan, who are entitled to wear jewels that belong to Princess Diana. But for Charles himself, for the unyielding Princess Anne, and later for Prince William, this entirely inappropriate argument only exacerbated the already profound insult. These were not mere trinkets, not personal gifts. They were priceless artifacts, the embodiment of centuries of the nation's history, its soul, and its heritage. Camilla, a woman who had journeyed so long toward the throne, found herself at the heart of a scandal that cost her everything. Was her thirst for power and wealth so immense that it blinded her? Or was this a desperate move that led to a tragic end? At what point do you think she completely lost her judgment, daring to take such a risky step? Write in the comments what you believe led to her downfall. If this story resonated with you, support us with a like. And to avoid missing new dramas that forever changed destinies, subscribe to the channel. Here we talk about those whose fame was genuine, but the price for it proved exorbitantly high. Delving into the centuries-old secrets of the royal court has always been the domain of a select few. But what if these secrets were to break free, threatening to shatter centuries of tradition? What if something far more valuable than the crown itself were at stake? Today, we'll peek behind the veil of propriety to uncover what unsettling secrets might be hidden behind the gilded palace walls. Prepare for a story where intrigues and scandals intertwine with a struggle for legacy, and the price of truth can be exorbitantly high. You'll discover why one reckless move could have led to the complete downfall of one of the world's most influential families. Stay with us until the end to not miss the most shocking details. And then, taking a step no one had anticipated he would dare, Charles stripped Camilla of her royal rights and privileges, firmly stating that Elizabeth's memory belonged to the entire nation, not to any single branch of the family. As Princess Anne and William entered this storm, the scandal transformed from a private clash into a public reckoning that shook the very future of the crown to its foundations. The moment Charles announced his decision, the air seemed to freeze, and the centuries-old palace walls, accustomed to the whispers of intrigue, felt the impact of open confrontation for the first time in a long while. It was not merely a decree. It was a challenge to tradition, a bold and risky gesture that could either solidify his power or forever destabilize the foundations of the monarchy. To fully grasp why King Charles's decision to banish Camilla from the palace sparked such widespread public outcry, one must revert to the world Queen Elizabeth left behind. Her reign was not only 7 decades of devoted service, it was intricately linked to the meticulous safeguarding of symbols that defined British identity. Every piece of jewelry, every brooch, every diary was an integral part of a grand, intricately woven tapestry. Elizabeth was keenly aware that these items were not mere possessions. They represented a trust established between the monarchy and the people, a sacred bond forged over centuries. Her passing left not only grief, but also a vast void to be filled, and with it, unresolved questions about the fate of an invaluable legacy. Following her demise, a monumental task fell upon the Royal Collection Trust. It was required to catalog the late Queen's personal effects alongside the crown jewels. The rules were crystal clear. Crown property belongs to the nation and is safeguarded for ceremonial use. Personal items could remain within the family, but even these had to be handled with utmost transparency. In fact, Elizabeth left handwritten notes beside many of her most cherished items, indicating which granddaughter or future queen should inherit them. One note, reportedly affixed to a Maltese sapphire cross, read, "To remain with the crown, never to leave British soil." These words, penned by her hand, were not merely an instruction, but a testament that demanded strict adherence. For at stake was not only material wealth, but something far more significant, the honor and reputation of the royal family. The process was meticulous and demanded immense attention. Tens of thousands of items had to be registered, photographed, and stored under the strictest security. But as the work progressed, serious discrepancies began to emerge. The sapphire brooch Elizabeth wore at her Sapphire Jubilee in 2017 was missing. The pearl necklace she was famously seen wearing at Diana's funeral could not be found. Even more sensitive was the disappearance of a set of diaries Elizabeth kept during the 2019 lockdown. Archivists whispered anxiously. These were no simple errors. They hinted at some interference, something sinister that could undermine not only the authority, but the very existence of the royal family. Perhaps these were not just disappearances, but harbingers of impending upheavals that could forever alter the course of the monarchy's history. Do you think these disappearances could have been accidental? Or was there some deliberate intent behind them, capable of shaking the kingdom's foundations? Was it a deliberate affront to the Queen's memory, or simply a fateful turn of events? Write in the comments at what point you believe the situation spiraled out of control. If this story resonates with you, support us with a like. And to avoid missing new dramas, subscribe to the channel. Here we talk about those whose fame was genuine, but the price was too high. Today, we delve into a story that shook the royal court to its very foundations. Mysteries, intrigues, and the disappearance of priceless treasures, all revolved around one of the most discussed figures of our time. Her name was always accompanied by a shadow of doubt, but no one expected her to face accusations capable of destroying not only her reputation, but the monarchy itself. How far can one go in the struggle for power and recognition? And what happens when the most shameful secrets come to light? Prepare to learn the shocking truth that changed everything. It was at this critical juncture that the public's gaze, like a spotlight, turned towards Camilla. For years, she had tirelessly fought to redefine her image in the eyes of the subjects. From someone long perceived merely as the other woman, she wholeheartedly aspired to become a queen consort, standing shoulder to shoulder with Charles, clad in dignity and respect. However, a shadow of doubt, like an invisible veil, never truly left her. Opinion polls repeatedly showed her public support significantly lagging behind that of Charles, William, and Kate. Whispers circulated through palace corridors about how she had once allegedly lent a brooch to her daughter, Laura Lopes, without proper official authorization, or how servants recalled seeing her wearing Elizabeth's jewels at entirely private gatherings. These rumors, though never definitively confirmed, nonetheless deeply embedded themselves in public memory, shaping a very specific perception of her. Against this highly charged backdrop, any misstep, no matter how minor, like a spark in a dry forest, was capable of instantly igniting a raging inferno of public outrage. When investigators discovered an irrefutable link between the vanished royal relics and Camilla's inner circle, it was no longer perceived as an unfortunate oversight or an accidental blunder. On the contrary, in the collective consciousness, it became an ominous confirmation of long-held suspicions that something deeply unsavory lay hidden behind the facade of propriety. Particular indignation was sparked by the notion that Camilla was not merely appropriating these priceless treasures, but was also taking steps to pass them down her own family line. This aspect, it seemed, became the point of no return, irrevocably dividing public opinion and casting a long shadow over the monarchy's future. Indeed, Elizabeth's jewels and personal diaries were far more than mere family heirlooms. They represented unbreakable, living threads of history that inextricably bound the monarchy to its people, embodying continuity and tradition. To treat them as personal trinkets rather than as the greatest public trust meant crossing an invisible but utterly insurmountable line, which no member of the royal family, could afford to ignore without catastrophic consequences. Within the ancient palace walls, tension escalated with each passing minute, like a boiling cauldron. Prince William and Kate, already immensely popular with the public, began to openly voice their deep concern, urgently advocating for the protection of Elizabeth's invaluable legacy. Princess Anne, known for her unyielding adherence to protocol and strict rules, unequivocally made it clear that she would tolerate no blurred lines or the slightest deviation from the centuries-old established order. King Charles, caught between a rock and a hard place, fervently hoped this extremely sensitive matter could be resolved quietly, without undue fuss or public scandal. However, with each passing week, the cracks in the very foundation of the royal family grew wider and deeper, threatening an inevitable and catastrophic rift. So, did Camilla have a chance to avoid this dramatic denouement, or will the shadow of the past forever haunt her, and the price of the royal crown prove too high? At what point do you think the royal family could have prevented this rift? Share your thoughts in the comments. If this story resonated with you, support us with a like. And to avoid missing new chapters from the lives of those whose fame was genuine, but the price exorbitant, subscribe to the channel. At times, even the strongest royal alliances find themselves on the brink of an unthinkable rupture when what was meant to remain hidden comes to light. What could compel one of the world's most influential women to commit an act capable of destroying her reputation and shaking the very foundations of the monarchy? Today, we unveil a story that begins with a shocking secret and leads to a dramatic conclusion whispered in the highest circles. Prepare to discover what personal loss, what hidden motives, and what desperate attempt could pit a king against his own queen consort. And then came a truly astonishing, shocking discovery. One of the items belonging to Elizabeth's personal collection was found in the possession of her own granddaughter, Camilla. This was no longer just a rumor, no mere conjecture. It was an undeniable, frightening reality, like a storm cloud gathering over the palace. The ground was meticulously prepared for an inevitable confrontation that would pit love against duty, loyalty against legacy, and a king against his own queen consort in a relentless battle for truth. What happened next entered the annals as one of the most dramatic family clashes in the recent history of the British monarchy. The first alarming signals indicating that something was seriously amiss did not come from a sensational press leak or a dramatic public confrontation played out for the world to see. They emerged quietly and subtly, like shadows, lost in the daily routine of palace staff and archivists, who, with their characteristic meticulousness, were accustomed to handling historical treasures whose significance was measured not only by their value, but by centuries. The alarm was not triggered by a single missing piece of jewelry, but by a distinct pattern that simply could not be explained by chance. The archivists of the Royal Collection Trust worked with incredible diligence and meticulousness on the personal property of the late Elizabeth II. When one of the junior archivists noticed with surprise that the sapphire Jubilee brooch, last publicly worn in 2017, was absent from its vault, he initially assumed it was merely a cataloging error, an innocent misunderstanding. However, when his immediate supervisor confirmed that no records of its issuance existed, concern began to mount, like a wave threatening to engulf everything in its path. Shortly thereafter, an even more delicate and alarming discovery surfaced. Elizabeth's pearl necklace, which she wore at Princess Diana's funeral, had also vanished without a trace, as if dissolved into thin air. And perhaps most unsettling of all, several handwritten diaries, dating from the 2019 lockdown years, were also missing. These were not merely jewels, they were national treasures, and the intimate personal reflections of a monarch revered worldwide, whose thoughts and memories represented an invaluable legacy. Consider what could drive a person at the pinnacle of power to take such a desperate step. Was it blind love, bitter regret, or something far deeper than we can imagine? Write in the comments what motive, in your opinion, could have been the driving force behind this dramatic story. If this difficult fate resonates with you and you want to know how it concluded, support us with a like. And to avoid missing new dramas and mysteries, subscribe to the channel. Here we talk about those whose fame was genuine, but the price too high. What if what you considered unshakable proved to be merely an illusion? Today, we delve into a story where palace walls could not conceal the most shocking truth. Missing treasures, diaries holding centuries of secrets, and a chain of events that rocked the monarchy to its very foundations. Are you ready to discover how the shadow of suspicion fell upon those closest to the throne? And what was the price of this secret? Watch until the end to uncover all the details of this incredible scandal that changed everything. When the archivist, like a harbinger of inevitable doom, dared to report his unsettling observations, he was strictly instructed to maintain the utmost confidentiality, avoiding premature panic. But can a storm be stopped once the wind has begun to gather force? Concern, like an invisible yet palpable wave, steadily spread through the ancient walls. With each passing week, the palace corridors filled with indistinct whispers and ominous conjectures. One late evening, a guard on duty at majestic Windsor swore he saw Camilla leaving the royal collection wing. She was accompanied by a senior aide, carefully clutching a velvet case to his chest. The guard, following protocol, logged the incident in his report, but when this report moved up the chain of command, it returned with a notation that chilled one to the bone. Royal discretion. For those who lived and breathed the palace atmosphere, this was a clear, unambiguous order. No further questions, complete silence. At the same time, the staff, people whose eyes saw and ears heard more than anyone else, began to notice subtle but highly significant changes. One trembling maid confessed that she had once glimpsed Camilla, as if playing with fate, trying on a necklace that for many years had been inseparably associated with the late Elizabeth. And a driver, tormented by his conscience, later admitted that he had secretly driven her to a renowned jeweler in Mayfair, using the pretext of some private ripper. Each of these stories, taken individually, could easily have been dismissed as a mere coincidence, unworthy of attention. But these seemingly minor rumors, when pieced together like fragments of a broken mirror and juxtaposed with the disappearance of priceless jewels and cherished diaries, formed a narrative so alarming and undeniable that it was simply impossible to ignore. Even King Charles himself seemed unable to escape the escalating storm of suspicion that, like a poisonous fog, enveloped every corner of his palace. His private secretaries, with faces etched with the deepest concern, delivered reports containing access logs. These records unequivocally showed that an old override code, one used as far back as 2014, had been employed to access the strictly guarded vaults, and the name of the person who had used this code was Camilla. For Charles, this was more than just disturbing news. It was a profound blow that pierced his heart, leaving a deep, bleeding wound. What was most striking in these initial, still nascent moments of the unfolding drama was the absolute helplessness of the palace. A place that for centuries had perfected the art of secrecy and the mastery of concealment suddenly found itself utterly incapable of reining in this growing storm. It seemed that the more desperately they tried to clamp down the lid on the boiling pot, the stronger the pressure from below mounted, threatening an imminent explosion. These events, like echoes from the past, involuntarily brought to the public's mind long-forgotten cover-ups and scandals, and trust in the monarchy began to crumble like a house of cards. long before anything was definitively confirmed. But rest assured, confirmation did come, and it was devastating. This story is just one of countless labyrinths hidden within royal walls. Do you think this whirlpool of suspicion could have been prevented? Or is the pursuit of power and legacy always doomed to such a high personal cost? Write in the comments where you believe the true cause of this drama lies. If you are interested in learning about such intertwined destinies, support us with a like. And subscribe to the channel so you don't miss new stories about those whose lives seemed like a fairy tale but turned into a drama worthy of the greatest writers' pens. In the most sacred depths of the monarchy, where every whisper holds significance, a drama unfolded capable of shaking the foundations of an age-old dynasty. The disappearance of priceless royal relics, whispers of betrayal in the highest circles, and the threat hanging over the reputation of those tasked with preserving traditions. These were just a small part of what lay ahead. Who dared to challenge the established order? And what price would be paid for such audacity? Prepare to uncover an unput-downable story. 1. Where every step could be fateful. While a relative quiet still reigned within the ancient palace walls, the outside world was already beginning to catch unsettling echoes. The press, like a sensitive barometer, was the first to sense the approaching storm. One of the less prominent but highly influential tabloids took a bold step, releasing an issue with a headline that instantly captivated all eyes. Questions about missing royal relics. Although the publication did not dare to name names directly, its words were indecently transparent, pointing to a figure whose proximity to the throne was undeniable. This news, like a suddenly ignited spark, instantly swept through every corner of the virtual space. Hashtags such as Lost Legacy and Camilla Affair spread like a virus across news feeds worldwide, generating an unstoppable avalanche of debate and speculation. As the outside world buzzed, inside the majestic palace walls, in the most private chambers, disturbing news of the rapidly escalating problem reached Prince William and Princess Kate. Princess Kate, known for her composure and iron will, reportedly addressed her husband with unwavering certainty. "This cannot be hidden. The situation will only worsen." Prince William, fully aware of the depth and gravity of the situation, could not disagree. He understood perfectly well that a direct confrontation with Camilla would inevitably turn into a true hurricane, capable of shaking the foundations. However, what was initially perceived as a light, almost imperceptible wisp of smoke now took the form of undeniable evidence of an impending firestorm. Everyone who served in Buckingham Palace or Clarence House knew the age-old truth. Where there's smoke, there's fire. It seemed the centuries-old monarchy paused on the very edge of an abyss, trembling in anticipation of the moment when the destructive force would break free, threatening to consume everything in its path. Finally, when the barely audible whispers of speculation turned into undeniable and tangible evidence, the atmosphere at Clarence House changed beyond recognition. Not a trace of the slight background unease remained, giving way to outright paralyzing fear. King Charles, whose patience seemed boundless, could no longer afford to interpret the disappearance of priceless royal relics as unfortunate clerical oversights or as the excessive fantasies of palace staff. Every new piece in this puzzle, from detailed reports and meticulous access logs to carefully collected witness testimonies, pointed with terrifying accuracy and irrefutability to one single, specific location and one single, very specific person. Thus began everything, with a quiet but no less resolute command. King Charles, realizing the inevitability of what was to come, instructed Sir Clement Mallister, a man holding the key position of Director of Royal Security, to conduct an investigation that was to remain in the strictest secrecy. Sir Clement, whose name was synonymous with exceptional meticulousness and unshakable integrity, was known for always prioritizing plain truth above any palace conventions or outward proprieties. His team, like invisible shadows, delved into the painstaking examination of every detail, from vault entry records and CCTV footage to the minutest phone logs. And what they ultimately brought to light proved to be not just disturbing, but truly devastating and incriminating beyond a shadow of a doubt. Do you think this drama could have been prevented? Or were its roots too deeply entwined in palace intrigues? Was there a chance to change everything? Or was the outcome predetermined? Write in the comments what you believe was the true cost of power and secrecy. If this story touched you, support us with a like. And to avoid missing new chapters from the lives of those whose fame was great, but whose fall was deafening, subscribe to the channel. Here, we reveal the destinies that left an indelible mark, but also paid too high a price for it. Imagine a world where every step is measured and traditions are sacred. But what if, at the very heart of this impregnable system, a malfunction occurred? Deep in the night, in the royal vaults, a secret call, an old code, and the disappearance of a priceless relic. This is a story of a devastating blow dealt to a new reign, of a betrayal that shook it to its very foundations. Who dared to infringe upon what belonged to the crown? And why did this audacious act become a personal tragedy for the monarch? Prepare to discover how one finding shattered illusions and forced doubts about the closest of kin. And so, the veil of secrecy began to dissipate when a most unusual event came to light. An internal call, made from Clarence House, opened the doors to the Windsor Treasury deep in the night. But what was most striking was that the code used for this operation was not just outdated, but completely unexpected. It was a special override code whose history dated back to 2014. Although technically still active, it had not been used in daily operations for many years, and only one person had access to this unique combination of digits: Her Majesty. Camilla. Who would have thought that this very key would become part of such a convoluted intrigue? And now, like missing fragments of a complex mosaic, new details of this story began to emerge. One of the maids, performing her duties in a guest room at Raymill House, stumbled upon something rather unsettling. Under piles of neatly folded linen, she discovered a jewelry case, hidden with a meticulousness that spoke volumes. Inside this case lay the sapphire Jubilee brooch, the very relic that had so mysteriously disappeared from the Foundation's official registry. The woman's heart froze with fear, for she understood the full gravity of a potential disclosure, but an inner voice and sense of duty prevailed. Overcoming her hesitation, she decided to confide in the senior maid, who, realizing the seriousness of the situation, promptly reported the news directly to Mallister. Barely a few hours passed before the brooch, like a ghost, returned to its rightful place under vigilant guard. News of the incident reached Princess Anne, and her reaction was like a lightning strike, instant and absolutely relentless. Known for her unwavering discipline and complete intolerance for any ambiguity, she had always been the strictest of Queen Elizabeth's children. When the returned brooch was presented to her, her gaze, according to eyewitnesses, became even colder. "Mother left clear instructions," she declared, and every word sounded like a verdict. "This is not just an adornment, it is crown property, and the fact that it left the vault is a direct violation of her will." Those present described her voice as icy, piercing, almost military in its severity, which only emphasized her absolute and unshakable resolve to uphold principles. At the very same time, King Charles was experiencing a profound emotional upheaval that seemed to threaten to destroy everything he had built. His reign, his vision for the future of the monarchy, was based on the unshakable ideas of continuity, on the careful preservation of the priceless legacy left to him by his late mother. And now, like a bolt from the blue, this terrible truth struck. Camilla, the woman whose reputation he had defended for decades, through a barrage of public condemnation and endless controversy, turned out to be the one who had so ruthlessly blurred the lines between personal, familial ties and sacred institutional duties. This discovery shook him to the very depths of his soul, leaving a gaping wound. For hours he wandered through the picturesque gardens of Clarence House, while his loyal aides watched with undisguised concern as his face, usually so composed, now seemed burdened with unbearable grief and the deepest disappointment. What now awaited his reign, when even those closest to him proved capable of such an act? Perhaps this incident was not just a test for King Charles, but a painful lesson that even on the throne, the price of trust can be exorbitantly high. Or perhaps such upheavals were inevitable at the start of a new reign, as a test of strength. What do you think? Can the monarch overcome personal pain and restore the inviolability of institutions after such a blow? Or will this crack forever leave its mark on his reign? Write in the comments what you believe was the most difficult aspect for the king in this situation. If this story, full of drama and royal secrets, resonates with you, support us with a like. And to avoid missing new chapters from the lives of those whose glory was real, but whose price was too high, subscribe to the channel. Prepare for a captivating story where royal splendor hides the darkest secrets. Today, we will transport ourselves to the very heart of the monarchy, to where behind closed doors, a drama unfolded capable of shaking the foundations of the throne. You will learn about a brooch that became a bone of contention, a betrayal that shocked the family, and a mysterious code capable of changing everything. What was the queen hiding? And why could one small jewel cost the monarchy its good name? Stay with us until the end to find out how one incident turned into a national crisis and who ultimately paid the highest price. Camilla, finding herself under direct questioning, did not shy away from admitting that the brooch was indeed in her possession. Instead, with her characteristic firmness, she declared that the late Elizabeth had once promised that this priceless item would eventually pass into her ownership. She confidently cited existing precedents where Kate and Meghan had gracefully worn jewels once belonging to Diana, and resolutely asserted that she was being unfairly singled out. "If they are allowed to wear what was Diana's," she allegedly challenged, "then why can't my granddaughter possess what was promised to me?" Princess Anne's response, like lightning, followed immediately and was piercingly clear. "Because those items were gifts. They were part of a legacy. You know the difference perfectly well." From my perspective, it was at this fateful moment that the family disagreement escalated from a simple domestic misunderstanding into a genuine national crisis. The lines of loyalty and duty collided with a resounding crash, exposing their contradictions for all to see. On one side, Camilla, firmly asserting her personal right to possess the item. On the other, Anne, with unyielding determination, defending the clear and unambiguous instructions given by Elizabeth. Prince William was drawn into this turbulent maelstrom of events shortly thereafter. When he was informed about the brooch and the existence of that very override code, his anger was not just noticeable. It was palpable and absolutely unequivocal. He insisted that further concealment of this information would be not just a mistake, but a fatal step for the entire monarchy. "We've been through secrets before," he said bitterly, addressing Charles, "and every time the truth surfaces sooner or later. It's much better to confront this now than to let this secret corrode us from within." Kate, always distinguished by her remarkable judiciousness and wisdom, stood behind him, advocating for transparency as the only possible path forward, a path capable of offering salvation. As events rapidly unfolded behind the closed doors of the luxurious palace chambers, clear and irreconcilable factions began to form. Among the aides, whispers circulated that Camilla had become an innocent victim of a carefully planned smear campaign, and old, long-forgotten grievances against her received a new, powerful impetus. At the very same time, others adamantly insisted on the irrefutability of the presented evidence, which spoke for itself. One of the senior and most respected advisers reportedly expressed his position with striking conciseness. "This is pure theft of history, without any caveats or mitigating circumstances." The pressure inexorably built, reaching its climax when King Charles initiated a closed meeting with Camilla, Princess Anne, and Prince William, which took place in the majestic blue drawing room. In the very center of the table, like a silent but eloquent witness to the unfolding drama, lay the brooch case. Charles's voice noticeably trembled as he began to speak, his words filled with deep sorrow. "The essence of the problem is not our personal relationships, however complicated they may be. It concerns the crown, the unshakable memory of my mother, and, most importantly, the trust of the entire nation, which we are obligated to protect. What do you think? Why could such a seemingly insignificant item as a brooch cause such a storm in the royal family? Was it simply a struggle for jewels, or something much deeper? A battle for power, legacy, and principles? Write in the comments how you think this incident affected trust in the monarchy, and if it was worth it. If this story resonated with you, support us with a like. And to avoid missing new dramas where glory turns into a trial, subscribe to the channel. Prepare to delve into a story that will tear back the veil of secrecy surrounding the most intimate secrets of the British monarchy. Today, you will learn about a confrontation that shook the royal court to its very foundations, where personal ambitions clashed with centuries-old traditions. What could have driven members of one of the world's most influential families into an open battle, where not only jewels but also reputation and even the future of the crown were at stake? This story is full of unexpected twists, betrayals, and shocking revelations that will not leave you indifferent. Watch until the end to discover how this battle for legacy unfolded and what price its participants paid. Camilla, in response, countered, asserting that she was being unfairly persecuted and that her loyalty was being questioned at every turn. She accused Anne of envy, William of plotting, and Charles of displaying weakness. Her words, full of anger, bounced off the heavy silence of the room, only deepening her isolation. At this moment, Anne rose from her seat, placed her hand on the case, and declared resolutely, "This ends now. These jewels do not belong to you. They never were yours." Chio. The scene was set for a climax, for that very turning point that would change everything. What began as a barely audible whisper in the vaults had now escalated into an open family confrontation, one that would soon become public knowledge, breaking free from the confines of the palace walls. The Blue Drawing Room at Clarence House had for many years served as the venue for countless official events and receptions, witnessing many smiles and handshakes. However, on that fateful night, it transformed into the arena for one of the most turbulent and dramatic confrontations in the recent history of the British monarchy. King Charles sat at the head of the long oak table, and before him in a velvet case rested the sapphire Jubilee brooch. Opposite him sat Camilla. Her arms were tightly crossed, her face pale but defiant. Next to the king was Princess Anne. Her expression was absolutely stony, and Prince William exuded barely restrained anger. Tension hung in the air, like an invisible but palpable threat. King Charles began the conversation with extreme caution. His voice noticeably trembled from the effort to restrain his surging emotions, as if he bore the unbearable weight of the crown. "This is not just a family matter," he said, looking at those gathered. "This is a question of duty, legacy, and the promises my mother made to her people. I cannot ignore what has been discovered." Every word echoed in the electrified space. Camilla leaned forward. Her tone was sharp and accusatory, as if she were challenging fate itself. "I am being treated like a criminal, just for wanting what Elizabeth herself said could be mine. She trusted me. She wanted me to have certain things." She waved her hand dismissively towards the brooch, as if it were a mere trifle, some trinket not even worth attention. "And yet you compare me to a thief." This story, full of drama and a clash of wills, leaves behind many questions. Was Camilla truly a victim of circumstances, or were her actions dictated by something more? What truly motivated each participant in this incredible confrontation? Write in the comments when, in your opinion, this situation spiraled out of control and reached a point of no return. If this story resonated with you and you felt its drama, support it with a like. And to avoid missing new dramas, and to learn about those whose glory was real but whose price was too high, subscribe to the channel. Power, intrigue, family secrets. Today, we delve into a shocking story that shook the British monarchy to its very foundations. Imagine a single valuable artifact, a symbol of centuries of heritage, becomes the catalyst for a grand scandal capable of tearing a family apart and jeopardizing the crown's reputation. What transpired behind palace doors? What accusations were leveled, and who found themselves at the heart of this ruthless battle? Prepare to discover how one thoughtless act led to an unprecedented decision that forever altered a queen's destiny. Watch until the end, for the conclusion of this drama will exceed all your expectations. Princess Anne's reply seemed pre-prepared, yet it was delivered with such piercing sharpness that it shattered the room's tense silence like a crystal goblet dropped on a stone floor. "This isn't about some ephemeral promises whispered in secret chambers," her voice trembled with suppressed indignation. "We are talking about clear written instructions, official documents preserving our mother's will and memory. You, of all people, are well aware. This brooch was never, under any circumstances, your personal property." The atmosphere thickened. Each breath felt heavier than the last, foreboding an inevitable storm. The air in the room became almost palpable, thick with unspoken grievances and hidden accusations. At this critical moment, when the silence seemed about to explode, Prince William spoke. His words, delivered with astonishingly controlled fury, only underscored the depth of his outrage. "You have crossed every conceivable and inconceivable boundary, Camilla. My grandmother, our late queen, dedicated her entire life, every single day, to preserving unwavering trust in the monarchy. And now, with just one reckless act, you risk undoing decades of her tireless work. How could you possibly imagine that such an action would go unnoticed, that it could be hidden from public view?" Camilla spun around to face him, her face flushed not just with indignation, but with deep, long-held resentment. "You never truly accepted me," she exhaled, her voice laced with genuine pain. "From the very first day I crossed the threshold into this family, I was treated like an unwelcome guest, an outsider. Meghan was mercilessly condemned for trivial missteps, while Kate, conversely, is constantly paraded as the embodiment of the ideal princess. But when it comes to me, every move I make, every decision, instantly becomes a monumental scandal, blown out of all proportion. Prince William slammed his palm against the massive table with such force that the echo reverberated through the room, making everyone flinch. This isn't about Kate, it's not about Meghan, and it's not about anyone else in our circle. His voice grew even harder, sharper. This is solely about you and her. He pointed to the brooch lying on the table, a silent witness to centuries of history, which Camilla, like some ancient artifact, had attempted to abscond with and appropriate for her own lineage, for her family, violating every conceivable protocol. King Charles, who until this moment had merely observed the unfolding drama in silence, slowly covered his face with his hands, as if trying to shield himself from the harsh reality. The few who had the misfortune to witness this heartbreaking scene later recalled that he appeared not so much angry as utterly broken, his spirit seemingly depleted. He was a man whose heart was torn between deep personal affection and sacred duty to the crown. "Please," he murmured, barely audible, his voice filled with despair. "Enough. We cannot continue like this. We cannot tear ourselves apart, or there will be nothing left of us." Princess Anne, however, whose resolve only strengthened with each passing minute, showed no intention of yielding an inch. She rose to her full height, her gaze, sharp and piercing like a blade, fixed directly on Camilla. Our mother, Her Majesty, very clearly and unequivocally designated this brooch as the inalienable property of the crown, Anne declared, each word a hammer blow. Yet you, against all reason, treated it as if it were your personal inheritance, intended for your granddaughter. This act is not merely a betrayal of Charles. It is a betrayal of every subject who believed in our queen and trusted her wisdom. These heavy, merciless words hung in the air like a final, inescapable verdict. King Charles finally straightened, his shoulders seemingly bearing the weight of the world. His face was etched with profound grief, which, however, could not stifle the stern resolve now visible upon it. "I defended you for decades," he addressed Camilla, his voice filled with an inexpressible pain of disappointment. "I supported you when the whole world doubted our choice, when every corner of the planet was against us. But this I cannot defend." With these words, he slowly reached for the velvet case where the ill-fated brooch rested, and with a decisive click, closed it, as if drawing a line. Under their shared history. "From this moment forward," the monarch continued, his voice now as hard as steel, "you are strictly forbidden from participating in all ceremonial duties. You will no longer have any access to the royal collection, nor will any members of your family." Camilla's eyes widened to their limit in utter disbelief. Her world crumbled at her feet. "You can't do this," she whispered, barely audible, as if trying to halt the inevitable. "I am your queen." Imagine a person for whom long-standing traditions were broken, for whom condemnation and scandals were endured, loses everything in an instant. This story is a vivid reminder that even at the pinnacle of power, the price for mistakes can be incredibly high, and personal ambitions can destroy not only relationships, but an entire legacy. Do you think Camilla had a chance to avoid such an outcome? Or was her desire for possession so great that it doomed her to this path? Tell us in the comments at what point you believe she irrevocably crossed the line. If this drama resonated with you, please give us a like. And to ensure you don't miss new stories about those whose fame was genuine, yet whose price was too high, subscribe to our channel. Here, we discuss destinies that changed the world and broke hearts. What if a single night could shatter decades of painstaking effort and break the strongest bonds of power? Imagine a royal palace where, behind closed doors, a drama unfolds that could shake the very foundations of the monarchy. Today, we will uncover the secret of an unprecedented scandal that altered the destiny of one of Britain's most influential women. We will discuss the moment when personal attachments clashed with the grandeur of the crown and the choice made on that fateful night. Forever reshaped the royal court. Stay with us until the end to learn the price paid for such audacity and why one phrase from the king changed everything forever. Your queen. In response to this audacious declaration, Charles's voice rang out with extraordinary firmness, almost with a regal majesty, as if the very spirit of the monarchy spoke through him. You were my wife, but the sanctity of the crown stands immeasurably above us both, and I will never allow its dignity to be trampled. The phrase, "I will not let it be humiliated," echoed in the charged air, foreshadowing the oppressive, deafening silence that followed. Prince William, lost in deep, somber contemplation, stood. Frozen, his gaze fixed on the polished surface of the table, his jaw tightly clenched, betraying his inner tension. Princess Anne merely gave a barely perceptible nod, as if silently confirming the inevitability of the decision. Suddenly, with a sharp, almost defiant movement, Camilla rose. Her chair scraped loudly across the gleaming floor, and she swiftly, without looking back, exited the room. The door, slamming shut behind her, reverberated through the palace's deserted corridors, with a sound as piercing as a lone gunshot in the night. But what most profoundly shocked all who witnessed this fateful scene was the pervasive, crushing sense of absolute, irreversible finality of what had transpired. In just one single intensely tense confrontation, decades of arduous, painstaking work to build and maintain fragile relationships seemed to collapse in an instant, like a house of cards. The monarch, it appeared, had made his final and irrevocable choice in favor of the inviolability of the royal heritage, decisively casting aside any personal attachments and thereby irrevocably pushing Camilla into the deep, dark shadow of oblivion. But however stunning and profoundly dramatic this outburst of passions played out behind closed doors, the true, genuine upheavals for the crown were yet to erupt. For as soon as news of this inconceivable exile leaked beyond the palace walls and reached the insatiable ears of the media, the consequences for the entire monarchy threatened to become truly unprecedented, unseen for a generation. It was initially assumed that this fierce conflict, which erupted within the majestic walls of Clarence House, would remain strictly confidential, hidden from prying eyes and ears. However, as is well known, palace walls, despite their massiveness and antiquity, could never boast absolute airtightness, and secrets, it seemed, had a way of seeping through stone and plaster. Within 48 hours, the astonishing details of what had transpired had already swept through every news outlet, from the most humble tabloids to respectable daily publications. King Charles banishes Camilla after she laid claim to Queen Elizabeth's estate for her family. This sensational headline, like an electric shock, spread like wildfire across the front pages of newspapers, from foggy London to sunny Sydney. It sparked a media storm, an unrestrained wave of indignation and curiosity that the ancient monarchy, with all its centuries-old traditions and power, proved utterly incapable of containing or controlling. The iconic photograph that forever captured and irrevocably defined this pivotal tragic moment in the history of the royal court was a snapshot of Camilla leaving Ray Mill House. She sat in the back seat of a dark, unassuming car as if trying to merge with the surrounding darkness. Her face was almost completely obscured by massive, opaque sunglasses, and her hand instinctively, almost reflexively, shielded her from the relentless, intrusive lenses of dozens of cameras pointed at her. In that heartbreaking moment, she appeared not so much a majestic queen consort as a wretched individual in complete, humiliating exile. In just one night, the entire public narrative shifted sharply and radically, swiftly moving from vague, circulating rumors about mysteriously vanished relics to a full-scale, devastating scandal of perfidious betrayal that occurred at the very, seemingly unshakable heart of the monarchical system. Her path to the throne was long and arduous, marked by years of waiting and overcoming public condemnation. Yet the end proved as sudden as it was devastating. King Charles made his choice, placing the grandeur of the crown above any personal relationships and attachments. But did Camilla have an opportunity to avoid this dramatic exile? Or did her ambitions, her relentless pursuit of more, doom her to this outcome? What do you think? Was this conflict inevitable, or could a different, less destructive path have been found? Share your thoughts in the comments, for every story has its hidden facets. If this fate resonated with you, if you felt its drama, please give us a like. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss new chapters from the lives of those whose fame was bright and undeniable, and whose price paid for it was, at times, too cruel. At the heart of the British monarchy, a true drama unfolded, where every step was under the scrutiny of millions of eyes. The crown seemed on the verge of shattering into 1,000 pieces, its custodians facing unprecedented pressure. While one heir grappled with the ghosts of the past, another swiftly ascended to the pinnacle of public adoration. What secrets were hidden behind the walls of Clarence House? What truly lay behind the disappearance of priceless relics? And could diaries, full of the most intimate thoughts, change everything beyond recognition? Prepare to learn the story that shook the foundations of one of the world's oldest dynasties. Meanwhile, King Charles visibly faltered under the weight of universal attention, like a colossus with feet of clay. His first public appearance after the scandal erupted, an event in majestic Oxford, became a true ordeal. Reporters, like hungry predators, clamored with questions about Camilla, and the air buzzed with their impatience. He moved forward in deafening silence, his jaw clenched tightly, betraying the internal turmoil and tension raging within him. When he finally took the podium, his words about continuity and responsibility, delivered with deliberate vagueness, struck a false note in the solemn symphony, utterly unconvincing. Critics, wasting no time, unleashed a barrage of accusations against him for indecisiveness and an apparent inability to provide strong leadership. This was particularly acute at a moment when the crown desperately needed a display of power and steadfastness. And, as if in contrast to this perceived weakness, William's popularity soared to the heavens. His pointed remark, which leaked to the press, "You can wear the crown, but you will never own its memory," spread across the country like wildfire, becoming a rallying cry. Public opinion polls revealed a stunning result. 75% of Britons expressed their full agreement with him, seeing in him the genuine and faithful guardian of Elizabeth's legacy. Kate's calm and confident presence, her unflappable grace, only enhanced his rising star, adding to his appeal. Paparazzi captured her at a children's hospice, where she offered a warm smile, adorned only with a modest pearl pendant. These touching photographs appeared in newspapers with captions proclaiming her the steady hand Britain needs. Anne, meanwhile, also found herself at the center of attention, proving herself a true heroine known for her uncompromising and unwavering honesty. Her decisive intervention at Clarence House received widespread media coverage, becoming a subject of heated discussion. On social media, she was instantly dubbed Anne the Savior, and memes featuring her characteristically stern yet fair expressions went viral worldwide. Many commentators referred to her as nothing less than the iron thread holding the monarchy together during this critical, almost pivotal period. The jewels themselves, though successfully retrieved from confinement and placed once again under strict lock and key, did little to quell the escalating public anger and unrest. On the contrary, their brief disappearance only gave rise to far deeper and more troubling questions, as if opening Pandora's box. How many more valuable treasures might be unaccounted for, lost within the palace's labyrinthine corridors? And most alarmingly, could Elizabeth's diaries, rumored to be missing, surface in an extremely scandalous and compromising context, changing all perceptions of the past? Elizabeth's legacy, it seems, demanded not only loyalty, but also incredible strength of spirit. But is it truly easy to maintain one's dignity when every step is judged by the entire world? What do you think? Could this upheaval have been avoided? Or is the history of the monarchy always written on the brink of drama and triumph? Share in the comments which moment of this story you found most pivotal. If this tale of power and the price of fame resonated with you, please support us with a like. And be sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss new chapters from the lives of those whose destinies became legends and whose trials served as lessons for us all. Imagine that one day, the curtain of the world's most ancient and revered theater, the British monarchy, suddenly parts, revealing not a grand facade, but an underbelly full of intrigue and shocking revelations. What if the most deeply hidden secrets, kept for centuries, are about to burst forth, capable not just of shaking, but of completely rewriting history? Today, we will discuss how one scandal not only jeopardized the crown's reputation, but also brought new heroes to the forefront, while somewhere in ancient castles, sealed chests await their moment, harboring something that could truly explode the world. Watch until the end to discover the price paid for this drama and what else lies hidden behind 7 seals. Even the staunchest adherents of the crown, those who believed in the inviolability of the British monarchy, were forced to bitterly admit the unprecedented negligence in managing the crown's treasures appeared, to say the least, extremely alarming. On the international stage, this news unleashed not just ripples, but a veritable tsunami of indignation, whose seismic tremors shook continents, echoing in the remotest corners of the world. In Canada, Republican members of Parliament immediately seized the opportunity to reignite fierce debates about the very essence and expediency of preserving the monarchical system. Meanwhile, in Australia, headlines like burning embers fanned the flames of doubt. Palace scandal, isn't it time to break free? Publications questioned, casting doubt on long-standing, seemingly unbreakable ties. Across the ocean, in the United States, witty late-night show comedians didn't miss a chance to turn members of the royal family into objects of biting ridicule, dubbing their new drama the latest, longest-running episode of a British soap opera. In France, one commentator with merciless irony drew a parallel between the current monarch and Louis XVI, who, much like his successor, found himself caught between fervent emotion and the weight of the crown, between personal attachments and state duty. But what was most striking was how the scandal swiftly transcended the fine line of purely personal dramas related solely to Camilla. Public and press attention, like a spotlight, sharply focused on King Charles himself, his character, and his ability to lead the nation. An agonizing question hung in the air like a sword of Damocles. Was he a pillar of unwavering authority, a strong and decisive monarch capable of reliably protecting his mother's priceless legacy? Or was he a hostage to his own attachments, whose will was paralyzed and decisions indecisive? His evident indecisiveness so sharply contrasted with the undeniable, almost palpable resolve of Prince William and Princess Anne that public opinion, quite significantly, almost tangibly, turned its gaze with hope toward the new generation. seeing in them the sole support and hope for the monarchy's future. By the month's end, official public approval ratings had silently but eloquently revealed the shifts that occurred, delivering a harsh verdict. Camilla's support plummeted to below 20%, an absolute record low, an unprecedented figure for any royal consort in recent history. Charles's support also rapidly melted away like wax on a flame, while Prince William and Catherine, conversely, steadily ascended the pedestal of public affection, significantly strengthening their positions in the public eye. Catherine, in particular, was hailed as the crown's unexpected shield and bulwark, its secret weapon, underscoring her growing influence and significance. However, the true test was only just appearing on the horizon, like an ominous shadow. Archivists, in private conversations, admitted that forgotten treasures still lay hidden in Sandringham and Balmoral, sealed chests containing something awaiting its moment. They could potentially hold letters, jewels, or diaries, capable not just of supplementing, but of tearing apart the familiar fabric of history, revealing astonishing truths and fundamentally rewriting everything we knew about the past. Perhaps if Charles had shown different resolve, history would have unfolded otherwise. Or perhaps these sealed secrets were inevitable, waiting for their hour to explode upon the world. What do you think? Could he have avoided this maelstrom? Or was his fate predetermined? Write in the comments what secrets you believe are hidden in those chests. If this story has intrigued you, please show your support with a like. And to not miss new dramas and the unveiling of the most incredible destinies, subscribe to the channel. Here we speak of those whose power was great, but whose price for it was immeasurable. Imagine just one seemingly innocent brooch, yet its appearance caused such an earthquake that it shook the ancient foundations of the monarchy. What then could unleash an entire treasure, shrouded in dark mysteries, that has been kept under lock and key for years? Today, we will journey into a world where the sparkle of jewels conceals betrayal and unrestrained ambition, where every step can be fatal and the price of power proves exorbitantly high. You will learn about the scandal that split the royal family in two, about decisions that cost the king his peace, and about how one woman, driven by a thirst for influence, destroyed everything she had built over decades in an instant. Can the monarchy withstand this onslaught, or is it headed for complete collapse? Stay with us until the end to discover the whole truth, for the most shocking revelations are yet to come. Public opinion, fueled by recent, truly incredible events, erupted into a raging ocean of gossip and speculation. If a single, seemingly modest brooch could provoke such a massive earthquake, shaking the very foundations of the age-old monarchy, what unknown force could unleash an entire treasure, shrouded in dark mysteries, threatening to bring the heavens down upon the ruling dynasty? The consequences of what transpired crashed upon the royal court with ruthless severity, forcing the monarchy to make a truly fateful choice. Should they stubbornly cling to a dense veil of secrecy, risking new, even more destructive leaks that could tear the fabric of their existence to shreds? Or should they embrace the difficult path of complete and unconditional transparency, which in turn threatened the very existence of their ancient lineage, exposing it to public scrutiny and condemnation? The weight of this agonizing decision fell upon Charles, a king besieged by his own doubts. He suddenly realized his profound insecurity in his ability to hold on to his fractured crown, which seemed on the verge of crumbling to dust. The scandal surrounding King Charles's decision to break ties with Camilla after her attempt to use her position for personal gain became the final straw, exposing the full fragility of his power. Undoubtedly, these events will be recorded as one of the darkest, most tragic chapters in the monarchy's magnificent, yet at times ruthless, history. But behind the veil of shock, beyond the screaming headlines, lurked an eternal, enduring lesson that could not be ignored. Trust, once torn to shreds, is far harder to restore than even the most priceless, seemingly lost jewels. Throughout her long and challenging life, Elizabeth II, with exceptional, almost surgical precision, maintained an invisible yet unbreakable line between what belonged to her as an individual and what was an inherent part of the nation, her sovereign. She deeply understood that true integrity is manifested not in loud, ostentatious gestures, but in a sacred respect for established boundaries, even in the seemingly most insignificant details of everyday life. It is at the very moment these boundaries begin to treacherously blur that a corrosive suspicion inevitably creeps in. Like an invisible poison, it eats away at institutions from within far faster and more mercilessly than any open, tumultuous scandal. For Charles, this was a harsh but sobering reminder. True leadership requires making at times agonizing and incredibly painful decisions that one wishes to avoid. For William and Anne, this event became a chance to embody the iron discipline and unwavering steadfastness so vividly demonstrated by their grandmother, always putting duty above personal comfort and momentary preferences. For Catherine, it was an opportunity to show how quiet yet unshakable dignity and inner strength can instill confidence and hope even in the most chaotic and unpredictable times. And for Camilla, all of this turned into a truly instructive story of how unrestrained ambition and clouded erroneous judgments can destroy 10 years of painstaking, meticulous image building in a matter of days, like a house of cards. This story is a vivid testament to how high the price of ambition can be when it clouds judgment. Camilla aspired to the heights, but ultimately found herself at the bottom, losing everything she had so long and painstakingly built. Do you think she had a chance to avoid this collapse? Or was her fate, dictated by an insatiable thirst for influence, predetermined? Write in the comments when you think she finally stumbled, making her fateful choice. If this dramatic saga has touched you, please show your support with a like. And to not miss new stories about those whose fame was real, but whose price was too high, subscribe to the channel. Here, we talk about unforgettable destinies. Once, in a matter of days, it seemed the crown itself would begin to crumble. What if the deepest secrets, hidden for centuries, suddenly came to light? What if the love for which so much was sacrificed became the cause of an unprecedented rift? A king broken and alone, his beloved vanished like a ghost, and a royal family torn apart by internal conflicts. Prepare for a story where every whisper, every glance, every jewel carries the weight of destiny and can change the course of history. Watch until the end to understand the price paid for this drama. Those days, fleeting yet forever etched in memory, brought with them a revelation, a profound symbol that resonated in the very soul of the monarchy. It was not just a small jewel, carefully tucked away in a velvet case. It became the spark that ruthlessly exposed the gaping cracks in the heart of the crown. If a single ornament could carry such a colossal, almost unbearable weight of meaning, what silent stories might lie dormant in Queen Elizabeth's sealed diaries, or in those unopened chests that had been kept for centuries in the hidden rooms of Sandringham? The great monarchy had, of course, weathered storms and severe trials many times. But the main question now was different. How many more such secrets and unspoken dramas could it endure before its ancient, seemingly unshakable foundations gave way with a fatal crack? But the drama was only intensifying. The consequences of what could be called Camilla's forced removal unfolded like powerful waves, each one mercilessly crashing upon the shores of the monarchy, carrying an ever-increasing, destructive force. Barely 7 days had passed since that fateful, almost fatal confrontation within the walls of Clarence House, when palace staff began to notice with growing alarm striking changes in King Charles's appearance and behavior. He now spent countless agonizing hours in the solitude of his study, often refusing any food brought to him by attentive servants. One of his aides, broken by what he saw, later bitterly recounted to a reporter from the influential The Telegraph. His Majesty gave the impression of a man who had lost half of himself. He stared out the window, but his gaze was empty, as if he saw nothing before him, immersed in the bottomless abyss of his own torment. Meanwhile, as if dissolving into thin air, Camilla vanished from the public sphere so completely and suddenly that the highest society immediately gave rise to the most incredible speculations about her whereabouts. Some voices claimed she had retreated to her secluded country estate in picturesque Wiltshire, seeking peace and oblivion there. Others, whispering in corners, hinted at a secret visit to a renowned psychotherapist somewhere in the Swiss mountains, suggesting deep emotional trauma. Her own children, Tom Parker Bowles and Laura Lopes, maintained absolute, almost hermetic silence, resolutely refusing any comments or meetings with the persistent press. However, one of the family's closest friends, unable to bear the tension, finally broke this deafening silence, making a candid statement to the authoritative Sunday Times. She feels betrayed not just by some faceless institution, but by the very man she has genuinely loved her entire life. This event has literally crushed her, leaving a deep, unhealing wound. And while the world speculated about Camilla's fate and the king's state of mind, within the royal family itself, a rift deepened with each passing day, threatening to shatter centuries-old foundations. Princess Anne, always known for her unwavering directness and principles, reportedly flatly refused to attend a family dinner. When she learned that Charles, against all odds, had secretly met with Camilla. If he cannot keep his word to the entire nation, how dare he wear this sacred crown? Such angry and disappointed words, it is claimed, she uttered to her brother during an extremely tense phone call, which, unfortunately, was inadvertently overheard by a palace staff member. What other secrets do the walls of Buckingham Palace hold? This story is just a fragment of a grand drama, where personal feelings clashed with age-old traditions, and the price of love proved exorbitantly high. What do you think? Did this royal family have a chance to avoid such a deep rift? And is it even possible to reconcile duty to the crown with the call of the heart? Write in the comments when you believe the situation became absolutely hopeless. If this story has touched you, please show your support with a like. And to not miss new chapters from the lives of those whose fame was real, but whose price for it was too high, subscribe to the channel. Prepare to uncover royal secrets that shook the entire world. Today, we delve into a history where intrigue, betrayals, and shocking discoveries lurked behind a facade of grandeur. What terrible truth did the late Queen's diaries conceal? Why was the future monarch forced to defend his grandmother's legacy? And who truly stood behind the biggest scandal in British royal history? Stay with us until the end to discover how this drama, which could have destroyed the monarchy to its foundations, unfolded. These words, leaked to the press, sparked a new wave of speculation that Anne might publicly oppose the royal decision. Prince William adopted a more cautious, yet no less resolute stance. During his visit to a charity in Cardiff, he spoke publicly about the situation for the first time, albeit indirectly. "My grandmother's legacy is non-negotiable," he stated in conversation with press representatives. His voice was calm, but an unyielding will could be felt within it. This brief statement was enough for the tabloids to run with sensational headlines. William draws the line, and the future king accepts no compromises. Public opinion polls conducted the next day showed that 82% of Britons fully supported his position, seeing him as a pillar of strength and hope. Catherine, as always, played a stabilizing role in this storm. She significantly increased her public appearances, strategically choosing events closely related to education and charity, areas that deeply resonated with Elizabeth's great legacy. Her unruffled confidence and warm, genuine interactions with the public created a stark contrast to the chaos that engulfed the older generation of monarchs, demonstrating an example of true dignity to all. One of the BBC's leading royal correspondents astutely remarked, "While Charles looks lost and confused, and Camilla seems to have vanished into thin air, Kate shows the world what a modern monarchy should be, what people want it to be." But behind the scenes of this visible stability, an even more disturbing and grim story unfolded, full of mysteries and hidden threats. Sir Clement Mallister, who led a large-scale investigation into missing relics, discovered new, shocking evidence that threatened to further ignite the smoldering scandal, turning it into a full-blown inferno. Not only priceless jewels, but also 3 handwritten diaries of Elizabeth, dated 2020. The very year the world was gripped by a pandemic, were found in Camilla's private residence. These diaries, according to the late Queen's last will and testament, were meant to remain hermetically sealed and inaccessible to public view until 2045. Their discovery in Camilla's home was not just an unfortunate breach of protocol. It was a direct and blatant disregard for Elizabeth's last wishes, a challenge to her memory and her decisions. When Mallister reported this astonishing discovery to the king, Charles, according to eyewitnesses, literally paled, as if all blood had drained from his face. He immediately ordered the diaries returned to the royal archive, but categorically forbade making this discovery public. "If this information leaks out, the monarchy will not survive such a blow. It will collapse," he allegedly told Mallister, his voice filled with despair and fear. Perhaps if this secret had never come to light, things would have turned out differently. Or, conversely, if the truth had been revealed earlier, many would have avoided unnecessary suffering. What do you think? Did Charles have a chance to change everything? Or was the outcome inevitable, predetermined by fate itself? Write in the comments when you believe the monarchy was on the verge of collapse. If this story resonates with you, please show your support with a like. And, to not miss new dramas and intrigues, subscribe to the channel. Here, we talk about those whose fame was real, but the price was too high. Imagine, centuries-old walls, guarding secrets, suddenly begin to shake with unbearable tension. What was considered unshakable for years was now under threat of complete collapse. Behind closed doors, a real drama unfolded, capable of changing the course of history. What could be worse than revealing the truth, only trying to hide it? And it was this decision that became the catalyst for a storm that nearly engulfed one of the world's oldest monarchies. Today, we will delve into a story where family ties are severed under the pressure of duty, and one wrong step triggers a chain reaction whose consequences still linger. Prepare to learn how a single secret jeopardized the very existence of the crown. But Sir Clement, a man whose principles were stronger than granite, could not reconcile himself with this decision. In a confidential conversation with Princess Anne, he made no secret of his deep concern. "Your Royal Highness," he said with growing unease, "concealing this truth could lead to far more terrible consequences than its disclosure." Anne, whose perceptiveness had always been her strong suit, shared his fears. and so a veritable storm of passions erupted between her and King Charles. Their confrontation, unfolding in the secluded library of Balmoral, was of such deafening force that even through the massive oak doors, staff clearly heard their raised voices, shaking the ancient walls of the castle. "You are destroying everything our mother worked so hard to build," Anne exclaimed bitterly, her words full of pain and despair. Charles, attempting to defend his motives, responded with no less fervor. "I am only trying to save what little is left of our family, of its integrity." Their heated argument concluded with Princess Anne slamming the door shut, leaving the castle without a farewell, and departing, carrying with her the shattered fragments of their understanding. But while passions raged inside the castle, outside a new, far more powerful wave of indignation was already rising. Public pressure grew with each passing day. A group of influential historians and custodians of national heritage, concerned about the fate of cultural legacy, sent an open letter directly to the king, demanding full and unconditional transparency in matters concerning the management of royal collections. This letter, whose words echoed throughout the country, stated, "Queen Elizabeth II's legacy belongs not to one family, but to the entire nation. The British people have an inalienable right to know what exactly happened to her personal belongings." Like a bolt from the blue, this appeal appeared on the pages of The Guardian, and immediately received colossal support. Over 50,000 signatures were collected for an online petition in a matter of days, demonstrating the scale of public discontent. Even Parliament, previously appearing as an impregnable fortress, could no longer remain aloof from the escalating scandal. Opposition MPs, sensing the pulse of public sentiment, demanded the immediate convening of a special committee to thoroughly investigate all aspects of royal asset management. One Labour MP, speaking in the House of Commons, uttered words that resonated with many. "If the royal family cannot properly manage its own legacy, how can it claim to manage the symbols of the entire nation?" This statement sparked fierce, bitter debates that shook the foundations of British political life. And now, for the first time in decades, the question of abolishing the monarchy was raised not by marginal radicals, but by respected, influential politicians whose words carried weight and prompted serious reflection on the future. The financial repercussions of this grand scandal were swift and alarmingly evident. Tourist traffic to the royal residences, which typically brought hundreds of millions of pounds into the treasury annually, began to plummet, much like water draining through cracks. Public opinion polls revealed troubling figures. 40% of international tourists expressed significantly less interest in visiting the famous Buckingham Palace after the heartbreaking scandal erupted, delivering a severe blow to the monarchy's image and economy. Perhaps he believed he was saving something more than just a family. But at what cost? Was this sacrifice justified? Or did his decision merely push a centuries-old institution to the brink of collapse? Share your thoughts in the comments. Do you believe the king had another path? Or was this conflict inevitable? If this story has made you ponder the price of power and duty, please give us a like. And to ensure you don't miss new chapters from the lives of those whose fame was real, but whose price was too high, subscribe to the channel. Here we unveil the dramas that changed the world. In a world where crowns shine brightest, sometimes the darkest dramas are hidden. What if, behind the facade of ancient traditions, a true tragedy is unfolding? Today, we will tell a story where economic collapse looms over a nation, and rebellion brews at the heart of the monarchy. The Queen Consort is prepared to take an unprecedented step that could change the course of history forever. And the monarch himself. His condition evokes not just concern, but genuine horror. Stay with us to discover how one scandal can cost not only billions, but, most importantly, a human destiny. A shadow descended over Great Britain as the country's leading economists anxiously predicted that if the storm of the current crisis did not subside, the national treasury could incur losses exceeding £1 billion in just 12 months. This was not merely a warning, but a sinister premonition, promising the country unprecedented financial turmoil. And so, amidst this general confusion, Prince William and Kate, the Princess of Wales, made a move that many interpreted as a carefully orchestrated escape from the impending chaos. They announced a grand tour of key Commonwealth countries, stretching from the vast expanses of Canada to the distant shores of Australia and New Zealand. Officially, this journey was presented as a mission to strengthen precious ties with overseas realms. But behind the scenes, everyone understood the true, unspoken meaning. The young, energetic couple sought to show the world that the future of the ancient monarchy, despite all current difficulties, remained in safe hands. They were a beacon of stability in a tumultuous sea of uncertainty. Meanwhile, Queen Consort Camilla seemed to retreat into the shadows, but her silence was deceptive. Away from prying eyes, behind closed doors, she was far from idle. Sources close to her circle whispered of secret consultations with experienced lawyers, where her legal rights and position were the subject of discussion. One legal expert, whose name was linked to her affairs, offered only a vague hint to journalists, which, like a spark, swept across the kingdom. Her Majesty, the Queen Consort, has very serious legal questions regarding her treatment. She is now carefully exploring all possible courses of action. These words sounded like a harbinger of an unprecedented storm. When these rumors reached the stone walls of the palace, they caused not just alarm, but a veritable wave of panic that swept through its corridors. The thought that the Queen Consort herself might initiate legal proceedings against the reigning monarch was unthinkable, unprecedented. It would not merely be a scandal, but an absolute catastrophe, capable of forever shattering the monarchy's impeccable centuries-honed image, plunging it into an abyss of shame and universal condemnation. King Charles, feeling the noose of threats tightening around his throne, desperately sought a path to reconciliation. He extended a hand, offering Camilla a private audience within the secluded walls of Clarence House, hoping for an opportunity to resolve the conflict in quiet. But the response, delivered through an intermediary, sounded like a cold and final verdict. "It's too late for any talks. You have made your choice, and now I have made mine." This was not merely a refusal, but a declaration of war. Camilla's words, like a sharp blade, pierced the king's heart, leaving a deep, bleeding wound. Close associates noted with concern how he became increasingly withdrawn, plunging into despair, and more frequently avoided official engagements, citing ill health. Indeed, Charles's medical condition caused serious apprehension. Doctors strongly advised him to significantly reduce his pace and workload, but the king remained unyielding. "If I stop for even a moment now, they will surely decide I am weak," he reportedly told his private secretary, gritting his teeth like a warrior refusing to retreat even when his strength was failing him. However, no amount of stubbornness could hide how merciless stress was consuming him from within. On one of those rare occasions when he did appear in public, photographers' lenses mercilessly captured his trembling hands and a gaze that seemed to wander into the distance, as if his soul had left his body. These images, like a virus, instantly spread across all corners of social media, accompanied by biting and ruthless comments. "The king is falling apart before the world's eyes," users wrote, unaware of the personal drama concealed by this public agony. King Charles seemed destined for the throne, but became a prisoner of his own pride and circumstances. His stubbornness in fighting for an image, even as his strength failed him, only accelerated his downfall. What do you think? Did he have a chance to avoid this? Or was the price of the crown unbearable, and his persistence only hastened his demise? Share in the comments at what point you believe he completely lost control of the situation. If this story resonated with you, give it a like. And to avoid missing new dramas, subscribe to the channel. Here we talk about those whose fame was real, but whose price was too high. Imagine a royal court where, behind the glitter of jewels, the darkest secrets hide, where one scandal can bring down a monarchy, and seemingly innocent diaries hold shocking revelations capable of changing the course of history. Today, we delve into a narrative where a princess's anger, desperate attempts to save the throne, and intrigues behind closed doors led to the unthinkable. Who was the true player in this chess game, and what price was paid to preserve the crown? Prepare to discover how one woman was banished from the very heart of power, and her fate forever altered the face of a great dynasty. Princess Anne's pragmatism, despite her deep resentment, was a formidable force. She realized with chilling clarity that if Charles stumbled, the entire institution of the monarchy could collapse, burying centuries of tradition and the very future of the crown beneath its ruins. Without delay, the princess took the reins, organizing a secret meeting. Behind closed doors gathered William, Kate, and the most influential court advisors. The goal was singular: salvation. At this meeting, permeated with tension and determination, a meticulously crafted plan was devised. It involved a dual strategy. On the one hand, publicly demonstrating the unbreakable unity of the royal family, creating an illusion of harmony. On the other, methodically and silently removing Camilla from all royal duties, as if an invisible hand was erasing her from the court's annals. "We simply cannot appear disunited before the world." Anne's voice was firm, allowing no objections. William, always known for his principled nature, nodded in agreement, but set an unshakable condition, as if carving it in stone. "She will not be there. Camilla will not appear at any official event. Not now, not in the future, never." This ultimatum, designed to save the monarchy's reputation, would be immediately presented to the king. Exhausted by a series of upheavals, feeling utterly alone, Charles seemed to have exhausted all his strength for resistance, and finally bowed his head, giving his consent. This was not a triumph, but rather a bitter admission of defeat, marking a new turn in this dramatic saga. Just 1 week later, Buckingham Palace issued an official statement that echoed around the world. It declared that Her Majesty the Queen Consort was temporarily stepping back from her public duties, citing health reasons. The statement was masterfully vague, as if woven from mist. Not a single word about the nature of the ailment, not the slightest hint as to how long this absence would last. However, for those closely following the unfolding scandal, the subtext was crystal clear, like a bolt of lightning. This was not merely a temporary withdrawal. It was an expulsion. Camilla had been definitively pushed out of the majestic halls of the monarchy, and her return seemed a phantom hope, an almost impossible reality. News of Camilla's removal from royal duties seemed to divide society into two irreconcilable camps. Monarchists, weary of the storm, breathed a noticeable sigh of relief, naively believing that the sharpest crisis had finally begun to recede, taking with it anxieties and uncertainty. But for Republicans, this event provoked an entirely different reaction. For them, it became irrefutable proof that the institution of the monarchy was hopelessly outdated, rotten from within, and incapable of meeting the challenges of the times. If the royal family can't keep track of its own jewels, then what's the point of its existence? Scoffed a headline in The Independent with biting irony. as if challenging the entire monarchical establishment. This article instantly went viral, garnering a record number of shares and comments, the vast majority of which were permeated with fierce and merciless criticism. But while the world discussed the public expulsion, a far more sinister and intriguing drama was unfolding in the shadow of official communiques. Elizabeth's diaries, those 3 voluminous tomes found in Camilla's home, became a bone of contention and the subject of fierce disputes within the royal archive walls. The chief archivist, Dr. Margaret Holloway, was unyielding, insisting that these priceless manuscripts be immediately sealed and placed in a highly secure vault, in strict accordance with the late Queen's last wishes. However, several young archivists, whose hearts burned with curiosity and perhaps a sense of historical duty, could not resist the temptation. They managed to secretly photograph several pages before the diaries were finally confiscated and hidden from prying eyes. These images, though not revealing all secrets, began to circulate among a select circle of royal insiders, like poisonous rumors. One such fragment, leaked to the press through an anonymous source, contained an entry that sent chills down the spine. Elizabeth, like a seer, had written, "Camilla will never truly grasp the difference between what was bestowed upon her by sheer chance and what she could have earned through her own hard work and dignity. I sincerely pray that Charles finds the courage and foresight to see this before it becomes unbearably late." Camilla's fate, it seemed, was sealed long before Elizabeth's diaries saw the light of day. Was she merely a victim of circumstances and centuries-old intrigues? Or was her downfall the inevitable outcome of her own actions? What do you think? Could she have avoided this dramatic finale? Or did the royal court simply leave her no chance? Share in the comments at what point you believe her path to the crown was definitively cut short. If this story resonated with you, please give it a like. And to avoid missing new captivating dramas, subscribe to the channel. Here we reveal the destinies of those whose fame was genuine, but whose price was immeasurably high. Prepare for a story that will make you question everything you thought you knew about the royal family. Today, we will uncover secrets that have been hidden for years behind the walls of Buckingham Palace. You will learn about a scandal that shook the monarchy to its very foundations, about a betrayal that fractured a family, and about the price that had to be paid for the crown. We will tell you about shocking revelations that were preferred to remain silent, and how one seemingly insignificant detail can change the course of history. Prepare for emotional turmoil, for what you are about to hear will forever alter your perception of power and duty. Watch until the end to discover who truly triumphed and who paid the price for their mistakes. Too late. 2 words, penned by the late Queen and dated April 2020, crashed upon public consciousness like a shock wave. This concise, yet chillingly potent entry raised an agonizing question. If even Elizabeth herself harbored deep doubts about Camilla, then how widespread and pervasive was this secret mistrust? Palace authorities, as if on cue, immediately issued a rebuttal, hastily labeling the discovered entry a malicious fabrication designed to tarnish the monarchy's honor. However, as if to mock the official version, independent handwriting experts, enlisted by several influential newspapers, confirmed with striking accuracy the distinctive characteristics of the writing perfectly matched numerous known samples belonging to Elizabeth's hand. The scandal, like a poisonous ivy, rapidly climbed, reaching entirely new, unprecedented scales. Now the public was interested not only in what actions Camilla had committed, but in a far more sinister question. What did the late Queen truly think of her? Charles, upon learning of this catastrophic leak, flew into a furious rage. His anger was terrifying, and he immediately demanded a comprehensive investigation to identify and severely punish all those involved in this unprecedented transgression. Sir Clement Mallister, a prominent figure, undertook this complex and delicate task, but very soon encountered a truly unexpected and practically insurmountable obstacle. It turned out that many of the archive staff, keepers of ancient secrets and documents, openly sympathized with the leak, genuinely believing that the general public had an undeniable right to know the truth. One archivist, preferring to remain anonymous, boldly stated to The Guardian reporters, "We are the guardians of history, its impartial custodians, and certainly not the king's personal servants. And if Elizabeth expressed such serious concerns, then the people simply must know about it." Princess Anne, known for her unshakable pragmatism and sharp mind, recognized from the very first moments the futility and senselessness of fighting the incessant flow of leaks. Instead of wasting energy on a battle that was doomed to fail, she proposed a truly radical and bold strategy: to publish a full, detailed official investigation into all missing relics, and to explain with complete candor exactly what had been discovered and precisely where. "Transparency is our only yet most powerful weapon," she insisted to the king, looking him directly in the eye. Charles, deeply perturbed, hesitated for a long time, fearing that such a complete and exhaustive disclosure of all facts would further tarnish Camilla's already damaged reputation. However, William, displaying unexpected firmness, fully supported Anne's far-sighted idea, and in the end, after much deliberation, the monarch yielded. The report, which was unveiled 3 weeks later, proved to be not merely exhaustive. It was a devastating, ruinous blow to Camilla's reputation. It meticulously listed a sapphire brooch, an exquisite pearl necklace, 2 sets of antique earrings, 3 personal diaries, and several intimate letters written by Elizabeth herself, addressed to a family member. All these priceless items were discovered either in the mysterious Raymill house or, even more shockingly, in the possession of members of Camilla's family. The report also irrefutably confirmed that the sole access code used to penetrate the highly secured vault unquestionably belonged to Camilla, and that she had used it without any official authorization. The reaction to these shocking revelations was immediate and, without exaggeration, brutal. Tabloids screamed with headlines such as "Camilla, Crown Thief," and "Betrayal of the Century," which seemed to brand her name. Social media erupted in a wave of indignation, flooding the internet with hashtags like "Abolish Camilla" and "Protect the Crown." Even moderate monarchists who had previously staunchly defended Camilla now bitterly turned away from her, seeing no way to justify her actions. One of the most respected historians of the monarchy, speaking on BBC, summarized, "This is not just an unfortunate breach of protocol. It is a true betrayal of the trust that lies at the very foundation of our entire system. It is a blow that could shake centuries-old foundations." Camilla's story, which turned into a fall from the heights of power and recognition, makes one wonder. Was her end inevitable? Or could she have, at some point, veered off the path leading to such a crushing collapse? Where is that point of no return when the desire to possess, or simply be part of something greater, outweighs honor and loyalty? Share in the comments at what point you believe she definitively stumbled, making a fatal error. If this dramatic saga touched you, please give it a like. And to avoid missing other stories of those whose fame was bright, but the price for it proved too high, subscribe to the channel. Prepare for a story that will make you doubt everything you thought you knew about the royal family. Today, we will uncover secrets that have been hidden for years behind the walls of Buckingham Palace. You will learn about a scandal that shook the monarchy to its very foundations, about a betrayal that fractured a family, and about the price that had to be paid for the crown. We will tell you about shocking revelations that were preferred to remain silent, and how one seemingly insignificant detail can change the course of history. Prepare for emotional turmoil, for what you are about to hear will forever alter your perception of power and duty. Watch until the end to discover who became the true victor and who paid the price for their mistakes. Camilla's family also found themselves at the epicenter of public condemnation. Her son, Tom Parker Bowles, was seen entering a prestigious London law firm, which instantly sparked a whirlwind of speculation about possible legal proceedings. Camilla's daughter, Laura Lopes, decided to completely remove all mentions of the royal family from her social media and canceled a planned appearance at a charity event. Sources close to the family whispered that Camilla's heirs were deeply shaken by the unfolding scandal and felt a keen sense of betrayal from the institution they had so diligently strived to support. At the same time, Prince William and Catherine embarked on their significant tour of the Commonwealth nations, where their reception proved truly triumphant. In Canada, hundreds of thousands of people greeted them, waving flags and chanting the names of the future monarchs. In Australia, the head of government publicly declared that the monarchy's future appeared bright and promising in the hands of the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge. In New Zealand, Kate delivered a speech on the vital importance of transparency and trust in public institutions, words many interpreted as a direct, though veiled, jab at Camilla. Perhaps the most poignant and symbolic moment of the tour was their visit to Queen Elizabeth's memorial in Canberra. William and Kate laid a wreath of white roses, Elizabeth's favorite flowers, and spent several minutes in silent prayer. Photographs of this touching scene, showing the young couple bowing their heads before the majestic monument, instantly circulated worldwide. An Australian journalist, deeply impressed by what he witnessed, wrote, "In this image, we see true succession, not through blood ties, but through the grandeur of character." While William and Kate were bolstering the monarchy's standing abroad, calls for more extensive and radical reforms were gaining traction in the United Kingdom. A group of parliamentarians proposed a new bill demanding full financial transparency from the royal family, including the mandatory publication of all expenses and income sources. The bill also stipulated the creation of an independent oversight body to manage the royal collections. The era when the monarchy could operate behind closed doors is irrevocably over, declared one of the authors of this revolutionary legislation. King Charles, weakened both physically and morally, lacked the former strength or desire to oppose these proposals. His advisers, keenly aware that any resistance would only exacerbate an already difficult situation, strongly recommended accepting the proposed reforms. In a private conversation with Princess Anne, Charles reportedly confessed, "I sincerely believe that being king meant steadfastly upholding traditions. But perhaps true leadership is the ability to recognize the need for change in time." This moment of realization, however, came too late to save his rapidly fading reputation. Public opinion polls showed that only 38% of Britons viewed his reign positively, the lowest approval rating for any monarch in the past 70 years. Many commentators were already openly discussing a possible early abdication in favor of William. A constitutional expert noted in the Times, "Charles may remain king in title, but real power and undisputed authority have already irrevocably passed to the next generation." Perhaps if he had shown more resolve, things would have turned out differently. Or was his end predetermined even before he ascended the throne? What do you think? Did he have a chance to change his destiny? Or was the course of events irreversible? Write in the comments when you believe he finally lost control of the situation. If this story resonates with you, give it a like. And to not miss new dramas, subscribe to the channel. Here, we talk about those whose fame was genuine, but whose price was too high. Imagine a world where even the strongest palace walls cannot conceal whispers of betrayal, and the luster of a crown is clouded by shadows of intrigue. Today, we delve into a story that shook the foundations of the British monarchy, a tale of treasures, reputation, and the unbearable cost of power. You're about to hear how one woman, caught in the eye of a scandal, tried to clear her name, but only plunged deeper into public outrage. We will unveil secrets that could have forever altered the crown's fate, and show how even silence can be louder than any accusation. Prepare to discover what truly transpired behind Buckingham Palace's closed doors and the price paid for attempting to rewrite history. Camilla, finding herself completely isolated and under the weight of universal condemnation, made a last, truly desperate attempt to salvage her rapidly dwindling reputation. Through her legal representatives, she released an official statement. This document, meticulously drafted by lawyers, asserted that all the items in question had been received by her with the verbal permission of Her late Majesty, and that at no point did she intend to cause harm or in any way dishonor the Queen's cherished memory. The statement also contained a subtle, yet quite transparent hint that Camilla had become a scapegoat, drawn into the intricate web of internal disagreements plaguing the royal family itself. However, instead of the anticipated leniency, or even understanding, the statement had the exact opposite effect, turning into a veritable disaster for Camilla. The public perceived it as a cynical and blatant attempt to shift blame onto the deceased Elizabeth, who, for obvious reasons, could no longer defend herself or refute the claims. The reaction was instantaneous and truly furious. One of the most influential feminist activists, mincing no words, wrote on her social media, "To use the memory of a departed woman to justify one's own transgressions is a new, unprecedented level of depravity. Camilla has lost the last vestiges of dignity, if she ever had any at all." This post was retweeted over 100,000 times, going viral and amplifying the wave of indignation many times over. Princess Anne, known for her striking reserve and composure, could not remain silent this time. In a rare public appearance, she uttered words that sounded like a verdict. "My mother was a person of absolute clarity of mind and astonishing precision in her actions and words. If she had wished for anything to be given away, she would have certainly recorded it. To suggest otherwise is to insult her cherished memory," the princess declared. These words, delivered with her characteristic directness and unwavering conviction, effectively put a decisive end to any attempts by Camilla to restore her reputation and rehabilitate herself in the eyes of the nation. At the very moment Camilla was desperately trying to cling to the slipping fragments of her standing, new, even more disturbing and ominous details began to surface. A former employee, who had previously worked for Camilla and wished to remain completely anonymous, recounted a shocking story to the Sunday Times. He revealed that the Queen Consort had repeatedly asked him to take certain items belonging to the royal collection for appraisal at private jewelry stores. When the employee expressed legitimate concerns about the legality of such actions, Camilla reportedly assured him that all these steps had been fully coordinated with His Majesty. However, a subsequent thorough investigation revealed that Charles had never granted such permission. This account brought to the surface an even more sinister and profound question. Was Camilla planning to sell some of the priceless royal relics? And if so, where were the proceeds from the sale intended to go? The palace naturally, vehemently, and indignantly denied these accusations, but the seed of doubt had already been deeply sown in the public's mind. An economist, a recognized expert in royal finances, conducted his own calculations and stated that the value of the items mentioned could reach an astonishing 10 million British pounds on the black market. If even a portion of them had been sold, it would not just be a betrayal of the royal family and the country. It would be an outright crime, he bitterly concluded. Camilla's story is not merely a chronicle of scandal. It's the tragedy of a person who seemingly achieved everything but lost far more. Do you think she had a chance to avoid this downfall? Or was the ending predetermined from the very beginning, when she first stepped onto this slippery path? Write in the comments when you believe she finally crossed the line. After which there was no turning back. If this dramatic story resonates with you, give it a like. And to not miss new dramas that forever changed destinies, subscribe to the channel. Here we discuss those whose fame was genuine, but the price for it proved too high. It seemed that love could overcome any obstacle, even the most ancient traditions. But what if that love becomes the cause of an unprecedented rift, threatening not only one family, but the entire centuries-old monarchy? Today, we will tell you about the moment when personal feelings clashed with the cold calculations of the crown, and the cost of that choice proved exorbitantly high. Prepare to learn about a scandal that could have overturned the entire British succession, a decision that fractured a royal marriage, and consequences whose echoes still resonate today. Don't miss it, because the conclusion of this drama is shocking. At this very moment, as public opinion seethed and shadows of doubt gathered over the royal court, law enforcement agencies, which had until then remained aloof from this delicate situation, began to feel increasing pressure. Calls for an official investigation grew more insistent. Several respected members of Parliament, addressing the nation, publicly appealed to Scotland Yard, insisting that there should be no exceptions for members of the royal family in the face of the law. However, fierce resistance immediately followed from the royal palace. Official statements asserted that all disputed items had long since been returned to their rightful owners, and that such family matters should remain private, closed to outside eyes. Yet this argument, however authoritative it sounded, failed to convince the general public, let alone perceptive observers. An influential columnist for The Guardian unequivocally expressed the prevailing sentiment, writing, "The law either applies to every citizen without exception, or it does not exist at all. Royal status can in no way serve as a shield from the fair hand of justice." These words, like fiery arrows, pierced the customary silence and prompted even the most loyal subjects to reflect. Charles, deeply aware that the situation was rapidly spiraling out of control, threatening to unleash an unprecedented crisis upon the monarchy, decided to take a step no ruling monarch before him had. He personally met with the Commissioner of Scotland Yard, the Chief of Police, and, overcoming invisible protocol barriers, requested a maximally delicate yet thoroughly comprehensive investigation. It was a high-stakes decision, as it could undermine the Crown's authority, but the king took the risk. Such a decision, though a risky move, was perceived by many as a clear sign that the monarch was finally ready to place the interests of the entire institution of the Crown significantly above personal affections and family ties. For Camilla, however, this was not merely a blow, but a final crushing betrayal that obliterated all hope. Sources close to the royal family reported that upon learning of Charles's momentous step, she, in a fit of despair, smashed her phone against a wall and, unable to contain her emotions, exclaimed, "He chose the crown, not me." These words, full of bitterness and disappointment, echoed through the empty corridors of their shared life. By the end of that month, which would forever remain in the annals of royal history, it became evident that Charles and Camilla's marriage now existed only on paper, nominally. The couple had not seen or spoken to each other for several weeks, and the chasm between them deepened daily. Royal correspondents, usually reserved in their assessments, began openly discussing what had seemed utterly unthinkable for a reigning monarch until very recently: the possibility of a divorce. One of the most authoritative constitutional experts, observing the unfolding events with alarm, noted, "If His Majesty Charles decides to dissolve his marriage to Camilla, it will be the first such precedent in 500 years. Such an event would not merely be a sensation. It could change the very nature and fundamental foundations of the monarchy as we know it." The weight of these words was immense, foreshadowing not just a personal drama, but tectonic shifts in the state's structure. The prospect of the king divorcing his queen consort became a topic that utterly dominated British media for weeks, pushing all other news aside. Reputable constitutional lawyers appeared on leading television channels, attempting to explain the unprecedented complexity and delicacy of the situation. The last time a reigning monarch dissolved their marriage was in 1533, when Henry VIII decisively severed ties with Catherine of Aragon. That fateful decision not only fractured England, but also the entire Roman Catholic Church, ushering in a new era. And while times have undoubtedly changed and the world is different, the symbolic significance of a potential royal divorce remained colossal, portending unpredictable consequences for the entire country. It seemed that Charles was choosing between love and duty, between personal happiness and the weight of the crown. But what if this choice was merely an illusion, and the conclusion of this drama was foretold long ago? Do you think he had a chance to keep both the crown and the woman he seemingly loved so deeply? Or was this story destined for a tragic rupture from the very beginning? Write in the comments when you believe Charles and Camilla's relationship finally fractured. If this story resonated with your heart, give it a like. And to not miss new dramas and destinies, subscribe to the channel. Here, we discuss those whose fame was genuine, but the price was too high. Prepare to learn a story that shook the foundations of the British monarchy. A story of love, duty, and the unimaginable price of the crown. You will witness how one person's private drama could change the course of history, how whispers in secret rooms decided the fates of millions, and how one decisive conversation at Clarence House brought an era to an end. What lay hidden behind the official statements? What personal tragedy was the king enduring? And who truly became the catalyst for the century's most sensational divorce? Stay with us to uncover all the shocking details. The Archbishop of Canterbury found himself on an incredibly fine line. As the head of the Anglican Church, he formally submitted to the monarch's will, yet as the nation's spiritual pastor, he could not ignore profound moral and theological dilemmas. At a private meeting with Charles, details of which later leaked to the public, the Archbishop reportedly uttered words that became historic. "Your Majesty, the Church, without doubt, honors the sanctity of marital vows. But it also recognizes that some unions are not destined to be saved. If your decision is dictated by a higher duty to the state, then the Almighty will, without question, understand." These statements, though couched in the most cautious language, effectively granted Charles spiritual approval for the dissolution of his marriage. Nevertheless, the monarch remained deeply conflicted. Despite all the vicissitudes, he continued to feel an attachment to Camilla, or at least to the image she once embodied for him. One of his oldest and most trusted friends later recounted to a biographer, "Charles was literally torn apart. He realized that a divorce was a vital necessity for the preservation of the monarchy, but it would also mean admitting that his greatest affection had turned out to be his most colossal mistake." Prince William, unlike his father, harbored no hesitation. Returning from an incredibly successful tour of the Commonwealth nations, he immediately requested a private audience with the king. Their conversation, held in Charles's secluded study at Clarence House, was described by eyewitnesses as extremely tense but absolutely necessary. William reportedly stated unequivocally, "Father, every day of your delay inflicts irreparable damage on the entire institution. You must act, and act immediately, not for your own sake, but for all of us." Charles, looking into the face of his son, the man destined one day to bear the burden of the crown, finally realized that further delays were impossible. Just 3 days after that fateful conversation, Buckingham Palace released a statement whose echo resonated worldwide. "It is with the deepest regret that His Majesty King Charles II and Her Majesty Queen Consort Camilla announce their decision to legally dissolve their union. This decision has been reached by mutual consent after the most careful and comprehensive consideration. His Majesty will continue to fulfill his sacred duties as sovereign, with complete and unwavering devotion to the crown and the people." The reaction was truly explosive. Tabloids rushed out with urgent special editions. The Sun headlined its article, "End of an Era. Charles and Camilla separate." The Daily Mirror published, "King chooses country over love." On social media, the hashtag Royal Divorce instantly became the #1 global trend in less than an hour. Public opinion was sharply divided. Some lauded Charles for his courageous and decisive action, while others criticized him for what they perceived as betraying the woman who had waited for him her entire life. What do you think? Was it worth King Charles II taking such a step, sacrificing his personal life for the sake of duty to the crown? Was this price too high, or was it absolutely necessary for the future of the monarchy? Write in the comments what you think about this difficult decision. If this story resonates with you, give it a like. And to not miss new dramas that forever change the course of history, subscribe to the channel. Here, we talk about those whose fame was genuine, but the price was incredibly high. In public, Camilla maintained complete silence, making no statements, but her legal representatives confirmed that the upcoming divorce proceedings promised to be as civilized and private as possible. Behind tightly closed doors, however, where intense negotiations were taking place, the situation was far from calm. The spouse demanded a very substantial financial settlement, which would include not only retaining her residence at Raymill House, but also a generous annual pension. Furthermore, her lawyers persistently sought for her to keep the honorary title Her Royal Highness, albeit without the Queen Consort prefix. The palace, however, met this last demand with an outright refusal, leaving no room for discussion. Princess Anne, who was actively involved in these tense negotiations on behalf of the king, reportedly told Camilla's lawyers directly. She lost all right to that title the moment her hands touched crown property. She will be granted financial compensation, but her royal status ends there, once and for all. For several long days, the negotiation process reached an absolute impasse, threatening to escalate into a full-blown disaster. It was then that Charles, realizing the critical nature of the situation, decided to intervene personally, proposing a compromise. According to his offer, Camilla would receive a very generous financial reward and retain certain privileges, but the coveted title would be irrevocably revoked. Camilla, fully aware that she had no leverage left under the current circumstances, was eventually forced to agree. The divorce proceedings, which had already officially begun, were predicted by lawyers to conclude within 6 months. For the British monarchy, this was a moment not just of change, but of profound transformation, heralding a new, previously uncharted era. For the first time in 5 centuries, a reigning monarch of Great Britain was divorcing, and this was not due to a passionate desire to remarry, but for a much more compelling reason: the urgent need to protect and strengthen the institution of the crown. Public opinion, which had been highly critical of Charles up to this point, began to slowly but surely shift. Many of those who had previously accused him of indecisiveness and weakness now acknowledged that this step, the divorce, required significant courage and personal strength from him. 1. Influential columnist for The Times wrote profoundly, "Perhaps history will remember Charles II not as a weak king, but as a monarch who, at the most critical moment, placed his duty to the nation and the crown above his own personal happiness." Public opinion polls showed a small but noticeable increase in his approval rating, although it still lagged significantly behind the popularity of William and Kate. Meanwhile, Prince William and Catherine were increasingly perceived as the de facto leaders of the monarchy. Their influence felt literally everywhere. They took on the lion's share of the most significant and high-profile royal duties, attending state banquets with world leaders, holding meetings with foreign heads of state, and honorably representing Britain at the most prestigious international events. Their popularity reached unprecedented heights. 84% of Britons viewed their tireless work positively. Many commentators openly expressed the opinion that Charles should abdicate in favor of his son to ensure a more stable and popular future for the monarchy. This story makes one wonder, what is the true price of the crown when, to preserve it, one must sacrifice personal happiness and even a part of oneself? Did Charles have another path, or did the defense of centuries-old traditions demand such a dramatic price? What do you think? Was it worth it for him to pursue this unprecedented divorce? Or could he have found another solution that would strengthen the monarchy without sacrificing his own dignity? Write in the comments what choice, in your opinion, would have been best for the future of the kingdom. If this difficult drama resonates with you, give it a like. And to avoid missing new stories about those whose fame was real, but whose price was too high, subscribe to the channel. A Dream of the Crown, or A Curse That Shattered Everything. Today, we will uncover a story where the royal family faced an unprecedented trial. Secret deals, explosive accusations, and personal drama that changed destinies forever. Stay with us to discover the price paid for power and reputation when the curtain rose on the monarchy's most intimate secrets, and one of the world's most influential women found herself on the brink of total collapse. But even in this maelstrom of accusations and public pressure, His Majesty Charles stood firm, seeing no other path but service. In that rare, almost confessional television interview, he uttered words that echoed across the country. "I have waited for this role all my life. I have made mistakes. Yes, but I will not give up the crown. I will serve my people until my last breath." How should one interpret these words? As a testament to an unyielding will, or as the stubbornness of a man unwilling to acknowledge a harsh reality that threatened to engulf everything? The consequences of what happened surrounding Camilla proved to be far more extensive than could have been anticipated, affecting not only the walls of the royal palace, but also the very foundation of the monarchy. Parliament, driven by a wave of public indignation, passed a truly historic Royal Transparency Bill. This document required the annual publication of all royal family expenses without exception, and mandated the creation of an independent oversight committee to manage the priceless royal collections. It was the most significant act of monarchical reform in the last 100 years, unprecedented in its influence. His Majesty Charles, realizing the hopelessness of the situation, albeit with a heavy heart, signed this document, confirming that he simply had no other choice. And while the whole country discussed the new laws, Scotland Yard continued its painstaking work in the shadows. The investigation, devoid of sensational arrests and public statements, nevertheless delved deeper into the web of events. Detectives methodically questioned several former employees of Camilla, carefully examining every financial document that could shed light on the truth. A police source anonymously told The Guardian, "We found evidence suggesting that the intent to sell certain items existed, but proving it legally will be difficult." Ultimately, the police decided not to press criminal charges, citing a lack of concrete evidence of criminal intent. This decision undoubtedly sparked outrage among some activists who openly declared that Camilla had escaped deserved justice by relying on her high status. But the majority of Britons, exhausted by months of endless scandals, merely breathed a sigh of relief, wishing only to turn this dark page and move on. The outcome of this drama for Camilla was truly devastating. One BBC commentator acutely observed, "Camilla lost everything: her title, her marriage, her reputation. Perhaps this is a harsher punishment than any court could have imposed." Was this her atonement? Now, with the dust settled and the world having turned away, Camilla lived a life of complete seclusion, hidden from prying eyes in her country estate. Rarely, very rarely, paparazzi managed to catch her on camera, during a modest trip to a local shop or a leisurely walk with her loyal dogs. But she steadfastly avoided any media attention, as if dissolving into the shadows. Her children, Tom and Laura, also chose to stay out of the spotlight, flatly refusing any comments. But a close family friend, sharing their feelings with the Daily Mail, expressed hope. "She is broken, but not defeated. Camilla has always been a survivor, and she will survive." Will she? Or will this wound leave a scar for the rest of her life? Her story is one of a fall, the price of ambition, and how a single choice can change everything. Perhaps she is truly broken, but will she find the strength to rise again? Or was this tragic end predetermined by fate? Write in the comments what you think awaits Camilla in her solitude. If this drama touched you, give it a like. And to avoid missing new stories about those whose fame was bright, but the price for it unbearably high, subscribe to the channel. Within the walls of Buckingham Palace, where secrets and treasures had been kept for centuries, a drama unfolded that could shake the very crown. The incredible scandal involving the royal jewels, symbols of power and heritage, exposed what many would have preferred to keep hidden. How can one betrayal change the fate of a monarchy and forever tarnish the name of a future king? Prepare to learn a story where triumph and personal cost intertwine in an unbreakable knot, and every step forward is paid for too dearly. It seemed that this saga of royal jewels, full of intrigue and simmering passions, had reached its unexpected but longed-for epilogue when the Royal Collection Trust made a stunning announcement. A new exhibition was being prepared, entirely dedicated to Elizabeth's personal belongings, her so-called trousseau. This exhibition, ceremoniously opened in the opulent halls of Buckingham Palace, presented to the public a sapphire brooch, a pearl necklace, and other priceless items that had recently been at the heart of the raging scandal. Thousands, no, tens of thousands of people lined up in an endless queue, eager to see with their own eyes these relics, almost lost, almost swallowed by the abyss of discord. The exhibition instantly became the most visited in the palace's rich history, breaking all conceivable records. The curators, well aware of the delicacy of the situation, deliberately chose not to mention the scandal in the exhibit descriptions, focusing solely on the profound historical significance of each item. However, for every visitor holding their breath before the display cases, the subtext was crystal clear. These were treasures that were almost lost, and their triumphant return symbolized the victory of institutional memory over fleeting personal greed. Prince William, always loyal to duty, honored the exhibition's opening with his presence, arriving accompanied by Kate and their dear children. A photograph capturing William standing before the display case with that very sapphire brooch, his hand gently resting on his eldest son, George's shoulder, instantly became an iconic image. This shot, which immediately spread worldwide, became not just a picture, but a silent yet powerful manifesto. It symbolized the unbreakable continuity of generations, the unwavering weight of royal duty, and the firm promise that Elizabeth's sacred heritage would be carefully protected for all future generations. As the year drew to a close, the monarchy, like a wounded bird, slowly but surely began to regain its strength. Trust ratings in the institution, though seriously damaged by recent upheavals, showed a timid but steady growth. The transparency reforms, introduced in response to public demand, were met with approval, and many Britons felt that the monarchy was finally, albeit reluctantly, adapting to the challenges of the modern era. Charles, though forever marked by the shadow of the scandal, continued to perform his duties with quiet, almost stoic dignity. However, Camilla's ghost, like an invisible veil, continued to haunt the royal family, a reminder of the past. In an interview given several months later, a well-known historian remarked with bitterness, "The Camilla scandal will be the defining moment of Charles II's reign. He will be remembered neither for his achievements nor for his reforms, but for this single act of betrayal and the subsequent divorce. History, alas, is cruel to those who undermine trust." For William and Kate, this scandal served as a harsh but invaluable lesson about the incredible fragility of royal status. They saw firsthand how an image meticulously built over decades could crumble in an instant, literally in a matter of weeks. This made them even more cautious in every step, even more dedicated to the ideals of impeccability and absolute transparency. As William once confessed in a private conversation, his words, like an echo, resonated with deep seriousness. "We will never forget Camilla's lesson. Trust is everything, and we cannot afford to lose it." Despite all efforts, the shadow of that old scandal forever fell upon Charles's reign. History, as a wise man once remarked, is cruel. Was it worth it? Was the crown worth such a personal price? Or did one fateful choice condemn him to an eternal burden? What do you think? Can Charles ever escape this legacy? Or will his name forever remain synonymous with betrayal and lost trust? Write in the comments what, in your opinion, was the true price of his reign. If this story resonated with you, support it with a like. And to avoid missing new chapters from the lives of those whose fame was great, but whose fate was tragic, subscribe to the channel. Here we talk about the real dramas hidden behind the glitter of the crown. A woman whose name became synonymous with scandal and forbidden passion is now ready to reveal the monarchy's darkest secrets. Her memoirs are a ticking time bomb, capable of exploding decades of carefully hidden intrigues and shocking truths. What will she write? Why is the palace trembling with fear? And what will be the price for these revelations? The answers to these questions await you at the end of this narrative. But what became of Camilla herself, this figure whose life was woven from ambition and despair? Her story, as it turned out, is far from over. Having withdrawn from the bustle of the world, in the quiet of her extensive estate, she immersed herself in writing her memoirs, a book that, according to whispered rumors, is capable not only of presenting her own perspective on what happened, but also of bringing to light the inner workings of the monarchy with such candor as the world has never seen. Publishing houses, anticipating a sensation, are already putting multi-million-dollar offers on the table for the right to own this manuscript. And in the palace, meanwhile, growing anxiety prevails, as no one knows exactly what secrets she will dare to bring before the public. And perhaps, in the end, Camilla's narrative will not appear as a mundane chronicle of greed or treachery, but as a profound drama of a personality so desperately craving recognition and belonging that, in this pursuit, she lost absolutely everything. It is a poignant reminder that even the most brilliant crowns cannot shield us from our own inner imperfections, and that in the relentless pursuit of what we mistakenly believe to be our rightful due, we risk forever losing life's true treasures. This truly royal tragedy serves as a vivid example of how quickly a reputation, built brick by brick over decades, can turn to dust. Camilla achieved what she wanted, ascended to the peak she may have dreamed of. But was it worth the personal price she had to pay? Did she find the happiness she so desperately sought? Or was she left alone with the phantoms of the past? Share your opinion in the comments. At what point, in your view, did her path become fateful? If this story touched you, support us with a like. And to avoid missing other dramas about those whose fame was genuine, but the price exorbitant, subscribe to the channel.